Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News, India's voice to the world. I'm Tanvi Taneja. Coming up in the next hour. Denmark and Greenland call on President Trump to stop the threats of the US annexing Greenland, as the US president insists they need Greenland for their security. Venezuela has ousted President Nicolas Maduro to make first court appearance in New York today. Trump asserts to run Venezuela temporarily. UNSC to hold urgent session on Colombia's request to address the crisis. South Korea's President Lee Jae-myung on a state visit to China says Seoul and Beijing need to expand AI cooperation. 9 MOUs on business cooperation signed. And Prime Minister Narendra Modi to visit Somnath on January 11th says Somnath temple survival reflects the country's indomitable civilizational spirit. The leaders of Denmark and Greenland have called on the United States to stop threatening Greenland, as US President Donald Trump told US media he absolutely needed the territory a day after Washington seized the leader of Venezuela. Washington's military intervention in Venezuela has reignited fears for Greenland, which Trump has repeatedly made clear he wants to become an annexed part of the United States. Those fears were underscored by Trump's comments to The Atlantic magazine and a social media post by the wife of his most influential aide showing Greenland in the colors of the US flag. In Greenland's case, Trump has claimed that making the Danish territory part of the United States would serve US national security interests, given its strategic location on the Arctic Ocean. Trump doubled down on his claim that Greenland should become part of the United States, despite calls by Denmark's Prime Minister to stop threatening the territory. Late Saturday, Katie Miller, wife of Trump's Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller, posted the contentious image of the Danish Autonomous Territory in the colors of the US flag on her X handle. Greenland's Prime Minister Jens Frederik Nielsen called the post disrespectful. But he also said that there is neither reason for panic nor for concern. He said, and I quote him, "Our country is not for sale and our future is not decided by social media posts." From a real estate deal to a national security standoff, Donald Trump's fixation on Greenland has evolved into a high-stake diplomatic crisis. As Washington appoints envoys and Denmark defends its sovereignty, the Arctic's future hangs in the balance. We now trace the timeline of a struggle that is reshaping Western alliances and Arctic security. It began in 2019 when Trump first floated the idea of a real estate deal, which Copenhagen quickly dismissed. By early 2025, the tone had shifted. The president-elect refused to rule out force to secure the territory. Simultaneously, Donald Trump Jr. arrived in the capital, signaling the administration's serious intent. In February last year, Denmark's Prime Minister fired back, securing EU support to declare that their sovereignty is not for sale. In March last year, before Congress, Trump escalated the matter further, vowing to take the island by one way or the other for security reasons. On March 11th, local residents responded at the ballot box, turning out in huge numbers to defend their national identity. On March 13th, Trump then pressured the NATO alliance, arguing that control of Greenland is vital to counter Russian and Chinese influence. On March 28th last year, Vice President J.D. Vance took the message to the ground, criticizing Denmark's Arctic defense capabilities. On March 28th, Greenland's youngest Prime Minister, Jens Frederik Nielsen, was sworn in, calling for immediate talks to de-escalate the tensions. And by the year's end, the US bypassed traditional channels, appointing a special envoy to advance its interests. And on December 22nd, 2025, Denmark formally summoned the US ambassador after Trump dismissed 300 years of Danish history. Come January 4th, 2026, Prime Minister Frederiksen issued a final urgent demand to Washington to stop the threats against their ally. And DD India's Akshay Dongre joins us now on the story for more details. Akshay, how serious are these fears of US pressure and Washington's intervention into Greenland?
Well, the fears at least are quite serious, Tanvi, and especially have become more serious after the abduction of Maduro from Venezuela, and in the manner the Trump administration has gone ahead with not only abducting the leader, the president of Venezuela, but also openly stating that they want to own the country, they want to sell their oil, they want to send their own companies. So in a way, the arbitrary manner, the non-diplomatic language, and the politically incorrect tone that Donald Trump has picked up as far as Venezuela is concerned, the fears of him taking any kind of irrational action, showing complete disregard for not only UN Charter but also human rights and rights of that other country is quite clear in front of the world. We have seen that how European powers have accused Putin and Russia of forcing Ukraine into in sort of submission, trying to send its army, annex the territory of Ukraine, and trying to remove a democratically elected president in the country. But Donald Trump, what he has done is exactly the same, and that has put the European countries in a spot now. So the situation is quite serious as far as these fears are concerned, because Trump is reiterating again and again that he wants Greenland, he wants to buy the country's part, and he wants it to be annexed to US. Earlier we have seen that he has given similar kind of offers to Canada, but back then people were not taking seriously what Donald Trump was saying and his ambitions as far as expanding the territory of the US is concerned. But now it seems that it's not only in hushed tone or in conspiracies where people are talking about a very much possibility of American imperialism in the world, but it is turning into reality with Donald Trump clearly talking about owning another sovereign country, to saying that he wants a part of another ally country, and saying that they absolutely need it, which means that he must be having very serious thoughts, and it's a great concern not just for Greenland but for the rest of the Europe.
Okay, let's talk a little bit more about Washington's interest in Greenland. What role does the territory's strategic importance in the Arctic play in Trump's national security argument?
Well, as far as experts are concerned, they have stated that Greenland has vast amount of resources. The critical minerals are there. It's a huge sort of territory, mostly uninhabited because of the harsh climate that is there. It's mostly a desert near the Arctic, but given the recent interest that US has in critical rare earth minerals, it's very much a possibility that US would want that territory to be annexed, and it is going to greatly benefit the US economy as far as its dependence on other countries like China is concerned, for not only semiconductors, for the critical minerals that are used in semiconductors, but emerging technologies as well. So as far as Washington's interest is concerned, we cannot call it Washington's, but particularly if you look at Donald Trump, his interest in Greenland is immense, given the fact that it has a lot of minerals, it has a lot of, it also has a strategic location, just right next to Europe. It can contain any sort of Russian involvement in the wider region. We are seeing that China is also expanding as far as its own advanced manufacturing base is concerned, for which US will also require similar kind of critical minerals that they honestly do not have as if you compare it to China. So clearly there are interest, and it's interest in somebody else's territory. So it's uncanny to see the way US, that has preached democracy in the world, that has talked about democracy, rule-based order, is now not only arbitrarily abducting presidents from other countries that it has it doesn't have good relations with, but also threatening allies, calling for their territories to be sold to them without their approval or any kind of interest.
Okay, Akshay, thank you very much for that analysis. Well, reactions are pouring in on Trump's interest in Greenland. France reiterated on Monday its support of the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Denmark and Greenland. This follows renewed threats by President Donald Trump to take over the Arctic island. The leaders of Denmark and Greenland had also on Sunday urged Trump to stop threatening to take over Greenland. So France joining the European partners in rallying behind Greenland. On to Asia now. North Korea conducted a hypersonic missile test on Sunday to evaluate its military readiness and deterrence capability. Leader Kim Jong-un, who supervised the launch, described the test as a crucial strategic measure to sustain and strengthen a credible nuclear deterrent, citing ongoing geopolitical tensions and changing international conditions. According to state news agency KCNA, the missile successfully struck targets around 1,000 kilometers away in waters east of the country. South Korea's military confirmed that ballistic missiles were launched towards the eastern sea, coinciding with the South Korean President Lee Jae-myung's official visit to China. The launch came shortly after Pyongyang issued a statement condemning recent US strikes on Venezuela, calling them a breach of national sovereignty. So, South Korean President Lee Jae-myung is on a state visit to China. Lee on Monday said that Seoul and Beijing need to expand economic cooperation over artificial intelligence. Also, South Korea's industry ministry announced that South Korean and Chinese companies have signed 9 MOUs to boost business cooperation. The agreements cover areas including consumer goods, the content industry and supply chains. Major firms such as Alibaba International, Lenovo and South Korean retailer Shinsegae were among those signing these MOUs. South Korean President Lee Jae-myung will meet his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping in Beijing today, with closer economic ties as well as the recalcitrant North on the agenda. Lee is the first South Korean leader to visit Beijing in 6 years, and his meeting with Xi on Monday comes a day after the nuclear-armed regime in Pyongyang fired 2 ballistic missiles into the Sea of Japan. You're watching the India News Hour, still to come on the show. Kiev escalating drone attacks on Russia, claims Moscow shutting 3 out of the 4 airports in the capital. At least 30 killed in a market attack in Nigeria. Witnesses say gunmen arrived on motorcycles and opened fire.
Geopolitics and trade deals. Economic challenges amid development. Hard work and the path to prosperity. It's the economy, always. Between walkers, money is what money does and says. Supply creates its own demand. Between the bulls pulls and bears tears. When supply chains globalization and India rises to the podium. We'll get you centered with the Economic Brief at 8 p.m. every Thursday on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I am Tanvi Taneja. US President Donald Trump has stated that Washington will run Venezuela following Saturday's military operation capturing Nicolas Maduro and his wife, now facing US drug charges in the US. He warned of a potential second strike if remaining officials fail to cooperate in fixing the country. The UN Security Council will hold an emergency meeting on Monday on Colombia's request amid the global condemnation. A report.
US President Donald Trump said on Sunday that the United States might launch a second military strike on Venezuela following the capture of President Nicolas Maduro if remaining members of the administration do not cooperate with his efforts to get the country fixed. Trump's comments raised the possibility of further U.S. military interventions in Latin America and suggested Colombia and Mexico could also face military action if they do not reduce the flow of illicit drugs to the United States.
The country is a mess. It's been horribly run. The oil is just flowing at a very low level, much lower than, even if it was badly run, it should have more income, more oil than what they're doing. So we're going to have the big oil companies go in. They're going to fix the infrastructure, and they're going to invest money. We're not going to invest anything. We're going to just take care of the country. We're going to cherish the country. We're going to take care, more importantly, of the people, including Venezuelans that are living in our country that were forced to leave their country. And they're going to be taken very good care of. Yes.
President Trump also insisted that the United States is in charge of Venezuela, but he was also dealing with the new leadership in Caracas, as Vice President Delcy Rodriguez was appointed as interim president of the country. Trump warned that she may have to pay a bigger price than Maduro if she does not cooperate with the United States. Maduro and his wife are now awaiting trial in New York City on federal criminal charges, including narco-terrorism conspiracy. Venezuela's interim president Rodriguez said that she was ready to work together with the Trump administration, asking the US leader for a balanced, respectful relationship. Trump said on Saturday that the US would take control of Venezuela's massive oil reserves and recruit American companies to invest billions of dollars to refurbish the country's gutted oil industry. Cuban government has said in a statement that 32 Cuban nationals were killed during the US attack on Caracas. Trump knew the facts. He further suggested that America's bitter foe might collapse on its own after the flow of relatively cheap oil from Venezuela will cease.
You know, one of the things that is happening, and I think you see it all the time, Howard, you've seen it, that Cuba is ready to fall. You know? Yes. Cuba looks like it's ready to fall. I don't know if they're going to hold out. But Cuba now has no income. They got all of their income from Venezuela, from the Venezuelan oil. They're not getting any of it. And Cuba literally is ready to fall. And you have a lot of great Cuban Americans that are going to be very happy about this.
U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio defended the military activity and said congressional approval wasn't required as it was a law enforcement operation, not a prolonged invasion of a foreign country. Protests in favor of U.S. action and against it sprang up in different parts of the globe. People rallied against Trump's military actions in many U.S. cities, while Venezuelan citizens took to the streets in Peru and other nations to celebrate the capture of Maduro. Thousands of government supporters took to the streets of Caracas, voicing their demand for the return of President Nicolas Maduro. Bureau Report, DD India.
So following the US military operations in Caracas, the United Nations Security Council will hold an emergency meeting on Colombia's request on Monday. The meeting is to discuss the recent capture of the deposed Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro and his wife by the United States. Under the agenda, threats to international peace and security. So in the wake of Nicolas Maduro's dramatic capture in a US military operation, Delcy Rodriguez, a staunch Maduro loyalist, dubbed as the Tigress, has assumed the role of acting president of Venezuela. Delcy Rodriguez is Venezuela's acting president, appointed by the Supreme Court following Nicolas Maduro's capture in a US military operation. Known for her hardline anti-imperialist rhetoric, earning the nickname the Tigress, the trained lawyer has served in key roles across Hugo Chavez and Maduro-era governments. As vice president since 2018, she assumed the critical hydrocarbons ministry in 2024. Rodriguez is considered one of Maduro's most trusted loyalists. The military has recognized her as the interim leader of Venezuela. From a powerful political family, her brother Jorge Rodriguez heads parliament. She reportedly softened her tone and eased trade controls from 2020 to 2024, building a reputation as a savvy economic manager. She remains under US and EU sanctions over allegations of undermining democracy and human rights. US President Donald Trump has threatened her, warning she will pay a big price if she does not cooperate. And now let's bring in Ambassador Manju Seth, former Indian senior diplomat, on the show. Welcome there, ma'am, to the show. First of all, the question of leadership. Who is likely to be the next leader of Venezuela? Could it be Vice President Delcy Rodriguez, who said she's ready to cooperate with the Trump administration, but has also declared Maduro the sole president, demanding his release, and has vowed to defend the nation?
Absolutely, I think it's a big question mark at the moment. But since she has agreed to cooperate and work with the US, President Trump will, as he said, see how the new administration is, and we will then take the next step. So he's ready to work with her, and she has to. His messaging is clear, President Trump's. You do as I say, or else. And he has even threatened her already, saying that her fate will be worse than Maduro's in case she doesn't cooperate. So that she has said, but she says to do it with respect. But that is something which we cannot at the moment predict, because President Trump has completely, has given a clear indication that they will run the oil sector. They will take over all the oil fields, and American companies will be there, and they will, not run the country. He earlier said they would run the country, but now, in effect, I think they'll run it from the back. But yes, the current vice president of Venezuela will be the acting president. And I think she has to play her cards very carefully. And otherwise, the future seems very uncertain. And of course, as we have seen, and we have been, seeing what President Trump has been doing ever since he came to power in his second term. His approach to everything, to the world, to world events, are I think twofold. One is to protect America, MAGA, that is Make America Great Again, and the second is the declining power of the US dollar, and the fact that people meaning many other countries, are moving away from making dollars the sole currency. And whoever has not accepted that they have to, use the US dollar for all, especially for the petroleum and other products and and other trade related transactions, he has made it clear that we are supreme, dollar is supreme, and we are the only superpower, and we will decide what needs to be done. It's not something that has happened before. Yes, everybody has acknowledged that US is the number one power, but the way he has gone about it, I think, is totally, breaking all laws, even within the country, as we have seen. He's not even taken congressional permission before taking whatever action he's doing with respect to tariffs, with respect to this particular operation, as he called it, the capture operation. Or kidnapping operation. So I think it's absolutely unpredictable and uncharted future lying in front, which we cannot at the moment predict with any certainty. And today he has also, President Trump has also issued threats to 5 other countries, and indirectly to India, also saying we'll increase more tariffs, otherwise you toe the line. So I think it is something that is we're going to see much more of it, and we can only hope that it will not lead to any actual physical, war, but this monetary kind of war, financial war, and this kind of operations, I think, may be replicated, especially in the Latin American countries, who are not, according to President Trump, favorably inclined to the US and not cooperating with the US. So I think. He has declared that is his sphere of influence, his meaning America's sphere of influence, and it is something that he or the US will determine, and everybody has to accept that it is the superpower, it is the main power in that region as well as in the world.
Okay, coming Back to Venezuela, who benefits the most from Venezuelan oil resources now in this new scenario of an interim government, but Washington running it from the back end?
Absolutely. So the oil will be controlled by the US. The US companies will naturally be the beneficiaries, and they will decide how and to whom it will be exported to. I believe that it is already being exported, and with talks with China and Russia as well. And Russia is of course the main defense supplier for Venezuela, and even for the oil fields and other resources. I think China was trying or has already got some of them, some of the oil reserves, and I believe that also may have been a kind of a trigger. When for the US, that both Russia and China are increasing their presence and influence in Venezuela, which it considers its sort of a sphere of influence, and it was not prepared to accept that. And also, Venezuela had been exporting its oil below. Without utilizing the US dollar. So I think that is another area of concern for the US. So multiple factors have led to this, and he did give sufficient, I should say, notice to President Maduro, saying please leave. But I think that message, but the message was there, but he didn't really think anything would happen. But I believe that the way he has gone about it, he's now threatening Greenland, he's threatening Mexico, threatening Cuba, and all other countries in Colombia, in Latin America. So I think the future is fraught with a lot of danger and a lot of unpredictability and uncertainty, and we're not going to see a kind of positive world environment at the moment, and I think it will only worsen if things carry on like this. And there's no one to really stop the US president or put pressure on him to try and stop him in his tracks, not even his own in his own country. So I think things are not going to, they don't bode well for the world and for world peace.
Okay, the United Nations Security Council is to hold an emergency meeting to discuss the capture of Venezuelan president and his wife by the US under the agenda threats to international peace and security. Well, this has come on Colombia's request. Your comments on this symbolically important development?
I think it's only symbolic, as you very rightly said. It's important that it is from the symbolic point of view, because in effect it will, as we well know, UN is not really, it is not able to, enforce its writ. So even if it has come in, even if it is considered, or if it's even, introduced in the UNGA, it will have no meaning really. Even if, but I don't think there'll be too many people who would want to stick their neck out to annoy the US. And in the Security Council, in any case, the veto power exists with the US. So I believe it will not be really an effective, effective tool in any way to put any kind of pressure on the US. It is only, as you said, symbolic.
Okay, we leave it here. Thank you very much, Ambassador Manju Seth, for giving us your analysis and the volatile times that are ahead in the entire South American region. For now, let's hope this gets settled soon. We'll see as to what the UNSC comes out with its statement. Thank you very much, ma'am. You're watching the India News Hour. I'm Tanvi Taneja. Let's head to a short break right now. When we are back, we will give you more news on the other side.
Can the US launch a bombing campaign against Iran? The Philippines vessel suffered structural damage. The saga of child sexual abuse is the United States China's debt trap strategy. Truth is stranger than fiction. But sometimes hard to uncover. Trust us to tell the truth, unadulterated and pure, of every story that matters to you. You read between the lines, cut the clutter, and connect the dots to get you the full picture. Watch Connecting the Dots at these times with me, only on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News. I am Tanvi Taneja. A relook at the top stories of this hour. Denmark and Greenland call on President Trump to stop the threats of the US annexing Greenland as the US president insists they need Greenland for their security. Venezuela has ousted President Nicolas Maduro to make first court appearance in New York today. Trump asserts to run Venezuela temporarily. UNSC to hold urgent session on Colombia's request to address the crisis. South Korea's President Lee Jae-myung on a state visit to China says Seoul and Beijing need to expand AI cooperation. 9 MOUs on business cooperation signed. And Prime Minister Narendra Modi to visit Somnath on January 11th says Somnath temple survival reflects the country's indomitable civilizational spirit. Prime Minister Narendra Modi remembers 1,000 years since the first attack on Somnath Jyotirling. On a social media platform X, Prime Minister Modi said, and I quote him, "Jai Somnath, in the year 2026 we'll complete 1,000 years since the first attack on our pilgrimage site of faith, Somnath Jyotirling. Despite repeated attacks, our Somnath temple stands firm and unshaken even today. Somnath is, in fact, the saga of the pride and indomitable courage of those millions of valiant sons and daughters of India for whom their culture and civilization have always been paramount." Unquote. So Prime Minister Modi reflected on the enduring legacy of the Somnath temple in his blog post, saying its survival and revival over the past 1,000 years stands as a testament to India's resilience. In a blog marking a millennium since the first attack on the shrine in 1026 AD, the Prime Minister described Somnath as a timeless symbol of the nation's civilizational and spiritual strength, rising again despite repeated attempts to destroy it. Prime Minister Modi wrote that Somnath is the eternal proclamation of India's soul. The temple was attacked by foreign invaders whose agenda was demolition, not devotion. The year 2026 is significant for the Somnath temple. It was in January 1026 that Mahmud of Ghazni attacked this temple. The temple stands as glorious as ever because of numerous efforts to restore Somnath to its grandeur. One such milestone completes 75 years in 2026. On May 11th in the year 1951, the restored temple opened its doors to devotees. The story of Somnath is defined by the unbreakable courage of crores of children of Bharat Mata. Each time the temple was attacked, great men and women stood up to defend it. The sacred duty of rebuilding the Somnath temple after independence came to the able hands of Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel. A visit during Diwali in 1947 moved Patel so much that he announced that the temple will be rebuilt there. The then Prime Minister Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru was not too enthused with the idea. He did not want the Honourable President as well as ministers to be associated with this special event. But Dr. Rajendra Prasad stood firm. 1,000 years after the first attack in 1026, the sea at Somnath still rose with the same intensity as it did back then. If the Somnath temple could rise again and again, then we can surely restore our great nation to the glory it embodied 1,000 years ago before the invasions. With the blessings of Sri Somnath Mahadev, we move forward with a renewed resolve to build a Viksit Bharat. These are the highlights of PM's blog post on Somnath. The Somnath temple in Gujarat marks 1,000 years of faith, devotion and resilience. As we told you, on this day in 1026 AD, Mahmud of Ghazni had attacked the fortified temple town. Nearly 50,000 defenders had lost their lives while protecting the shrine. But through centuries, the Somnath temple had stood tall as a symbol of India's enduring spirit. PM Modi hails Somnath as a symbol of India's civilization's indomitable spirit, a legacy that continues to inspire millions across the nation.
The Somnath temple, one of the most sacred shrines for Hindus, marked 1000 years since the first recorded attack on the temple in 1026 CE. Located along Gujarat's coastline, Somnath is revered as the first of the 12 Jyotirlingas dedicated to Lord Shiva. Over the centuries, the temple has witnessed repeated destruction and reconstruction, becoming a powerful emblem of faith that survived the turbulence of history. Prime Minister Narendra Modi today shared an op-ed marking the historic milestone of 1000 years since the first attack on Somnath in 1026 AD. He also shared the sentiments in a post on X. PM said, 2026 marks 1000 years since the first attack on Somnath took place. Despite repeated attacks subsequently, Somnath stands tall. This is because Somnath's story is about the unbreakable courage of countless children of Bharat Mata who protected our culture and civilization. The Somnath temple is not merely a structure of stone or a place of worship, it is a living proclamation of India's civilizational soul, ancient beyond memory, repeatedly attacked yet never conquered in spirit. On 6th January 1026, Mahmud of Ghazni attacked the fortified temple town. Nearly 50,000 defenders lost their lives while protecting the shrine. Mahmud subsequently plundered the temple and desecrated the sanctum. Again in 1299 AD, Alauddin Khilji's general Alaf Khan destroyed the shrine, carrying fragments to Delhi. Once more, Hindu rulers rebuilt it. In 1394, Muzaffar Khan, governor of Gujarat, destroyed the temple. Similarly, in 1459 AD, Mahmud Begra or Muzaffar II desecrated the Somnath temple. In 1702 AD, Aurangzeb ordered that Somnath temple be destroyed beyond repair. In 1706 AD, the shrine was converted into a mosque on order of Aurangzeb. Finally, Queen Ahilyabai Holkar, recognizing the sacred continuity, built a new temple nearby in 1783. This is the blood-stained chronicle of Somnath, centuries marked by destruction and renewal, through which the temple comes to embody the resurrection of Bharat itself. While the invaders who sought Somnath's end have now become mere footnotes in history, the glory of the shrine continues to grow. From Mahmud of Ghazni to Aurangzeb, the shrine was targeted time and again, not simply to destroy a temple, but to shatter the civilizational confidence of Hindu society. After independence, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel played a decisive and historic role in rebuilding the Somnath temple. On 13th November 1947, Sardar Patel announced the decision to reconstruct the Somnath temple. Somnath stands today not merely as a reconstructed temple, but as a civilizational statement etched in stone and faith. Each destruction was answered not with silence, but with renewal. Each fall became the foundation of further consolidation of faith and devotion. In this unbroken cycle of ruin and resurrection lies Somnath's true greatness. Bureau Report, DD India.
The Indian Coast Guard ship Samudra Pratap, the first of two pollution control vessels built by Goa Shipyard Limited, was commissioned by Defence Minister Rajnath Singh. With over 60% indigenous content, the induction of this ship reinforces the vision of government's Atmanirbhar Bharat and Make in India initiatives. It is the largest ship in the Indian Coast Guard fleet, significantly enhancing the Coast Guard's operational reach and capability.
Yes, Tanvi, one of the charter of duties of the Coast Guard, apart from the constabulary duties, the policing of the coasts or the territorial waters, carrying out search and rescue of distressed mariners or fishermen, in times of cyclone or other climate disasters. One of the charter of duties or mandate of the Coast Guard is to control the oil spills and pollution of our Indian waters, in Indian territorial waters and Indian exclusive economic zones. We know, Tanvi, that we have a coastline of 7,500 kilometers approximately. Throughout that coastline, the Indian Coast Guard regularly deploys 50 to 60 ships or vessels, 10 to 12 helicopters or aerial assets, aircraft such as Dornier for reconnaissance. Now, what does a pollution control vessel do? We know, Tanvi, that last year in May, there was a merchant vessel known as MSC Elsa 3, which sank. It was carrying hazardous cargo, toxic chemicals, very, very toxic grade 3 poisonous chemicals. Then the next month, in June, there was a Singapore flagged vessel known as MV Van Hai 503. Again, there was a fire on board, and both these vessels actually met distress off the coast of Kerala. The Elsa, about 22 nautical miles from the Kerala coast of Alappuzha. The MV Van Hai, only 88 nautical miles. 88 nautical miles, you convert it to kilometers, is only about 200, almost 200 kilometers at sea. So when this oil spill occurs, just imagine the kind of disaster that it can wreak or on the marine life, the marine flora and fauna, and of course these tankers. In the case of Elsa, the tankers can drift to the coast, and even the coastline can be affected, affecting the food chain of the people living on the coastline. So the Coast Guard, through its pollution control vessels such as the Samudra Pratap, of course, is commissioned. We have another one under construction at the Goa shipyard, which is known as Samudra Prachet. That also is going to be commissioned this year. There was a contract of 2 pollution control vessels which was given to the Goa shipyard. We have an older one, Samudra Prahari, and that Samudra Prahari has not just carried out pollution control in this 2 very, very significant, averted a catastrophic situation on the coastline of Kerala last year in MSV Elsa and Van Hai. We prevented this very, very toxic. Now, how do they do it? They carry oil dispersants. They carry dry chemical powder. Through the embarked helicopters of the ship, these could be advanced light helicopters, could be Chetak helicopters. Through these and Dornier aircraft, dry chemical powder, oil spill dispersants are put so that oil spill is contained in a certain area. They have specialized equipment for that, and even other Coast Guard ships, Tanvi, can be converted into a pollution control configuration. But these, of course, are very, very state of the art, highly specialized. And we know that this is about 112 meters long, has a displacement of almost 4,000 tons, can achieve a maximum speed of 22 knots. With all of the state-of-the-art, very, very proud moment for us Indians, Tanvi, because Atmanirbhar Bharat, that is the key word all through the 10 years that we've seen from the Modi government. Self-reliance, all of these integrated platform management system, automated power management system, the bridge control system, everything being manufactured in India. 60% of the content of this vessel is indigenous and our Coast Guard is, of course, on the pathway to
become self-reliant. Yes, thank you very much, Nandita, for explaining to us in great detail the functioning and the features of Samudra Pratap. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh also called the commissioning of Samudra Pratap a moment of pride.
आज इंडियन कोस्ट गार्ड शिप समुद्र प्रताप को राष्ट्र को समर्पित करते हुए मुझे गौरव की अनुभूति हो रही है। इस शिप की कमीशनिंग आने वाले वर्षों में हमारे समुद्री क्षमता को निश्चित रूप से ऊंचाई देगी, ऐसा मेरा विश्वास है। यह शिप हम सबके कलेक्टिव रिजॉल्व का यह प्रतीक है।
External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar is in Paris as part of his 6-day official visit to France and Luxembourg aimed at deepening bilateral ties. The External Affairs Minister on Monday will meet senior French leadership and hold detailed discussions with Minister For Europe and Foreign Affairs, Jean-Noel Barrot on the progress under the India-France strategic partnership, including defence, space, Indo-Pacific cooperation and global issues. Jaishankar will also address the 31st French Ambassadors Conference as guest of honour. Jaishankar visited a textile exhibition titled Textile Matters, Woven Stories Between India and France. He was received by French Minister Eleanor Carrot at the exhibition. The exhibition highlights the deep and long-standing creative ties between India and France through textiles. It showcases hand-woven and handcrafted fabrics, reflecting centuries of shared artistic exchange between the two countries. The displays trace nearly 400 years of collaboration, from Mughal-era textiles of the 17th century to contemporary haute couture designs of 2025. The exhibition also brings together works from art, fashion, design, architecture, underlining how traditional craft practices continue to evolve in modern times. Jaishankar's visit underscores the role of textiles as a living link in India-France cultural relations, symbolizing a shared heritage while opening space for future collaboration.
The discourse of the exhibition, which is about the relationship between France and India through the perspective of the creation with the textile. And this first room, this antechamber, is a wonderful introduction to the enthusiasm, the curiosity of the French history toward the creation of Indian textile.
The piece was sourced from various locations, and it was really to kind of represent a traditional Parisian apartment enveloped with this gorgeous Indian print. So you can see you've got elements of whimsy, such as the chandelier, which is completely covered, also books that are covered over here, and the idea was to create this sweeping moment of fluid movement of the print.
Home Minister Amit Shah attended the Modi Pongal festival in Tiruchirappalli, Tamil Nadu, where traditional Pongal celebrations highlighted local culture and customs. The Bharatiya Janata Party organized the Modi Pongal festival at Mannarpuram grounds in Trichy, where Pongal sweet rice was cooked in 1008 pots. Several union ministers along with senior BJP leaders from Tamil Nadu were present. Thousands of party workers and their families took part in the celebrations, which featured traditional art and cultural performances from across the state. The program concluded with rituals symbolizing prosperity and cultural unity. In a significant ruling on Monday, the Supreme Court rejected the bail plea by activists Omar Khalid and Sharjeel Imam in the larger conspiracy case related to the February 2020 Northeast Delhi riots. A bench of Justices Arvind Kumar and N.V. Anjaria held that their roles were distinct from the other co-accused and could not be compared, citing a prima facie case under the stringent Unlawful Activities Prevention Act 1967. The court upheld the Delhi High Court's view of a plea after Ukraine launched dozens of drones targeting the Russian capital. The incident caused significant flight disruptions, including delays at Vnukovo, Moscow's second busiest airport, according to Russian media reports. Moscow Mayor Sergei Sobyanin said that air defenses intercepted at least 27 drones. New regulations have come into force on Monday in Britain, banning daytime TV and online adverts for junk foods in what the government calls a world-leading action to tackle childhood obesity. The ban, targeting ads for products high in fat, salt or sugar, is expected to remove up to 7.2 billion before the 9 p.m. watershed, and Anytime Online will reduce the number of children living with obesity by 20,000 and deliver around $2.7 billion in health benefits, UK health officials said. Local authorities have also been given the power to stop fast food shops setting up outside schools. The government notes 22% of children starting primary schooling in England, typically aged around 5, are overweight or obese, rising to more than a third by the time they progress to secondary schools aged 11. The German capital of Berlin has been hit by a power outage that has left tens of thousands of people in the dark and in the cold. And one of them is our DW correspondent, Lars Holter, who is joining me for more. Lars, what can you tell us about what happened?
Thanks for having me. And I'm really glad I can be in the studio talking to you today, especially since it's heated here and there's hot water too for my morning coffee. None of that I have at my house. It all began a Saturday morning. From a personal perspective, the lights simply didn't work. And since it was a new LED light, I figured it was probably a power outage. News trickled in very slowly then because the Wi-Fi was off as well, and even mobile data was slow. But then we found out that left-wing extremists had apparently set fire to a gas power plant and to a cable bridge connecting that power plant to the grid. The attack damaged several key power lines, affecting 4 districts in the southwest of Berlin. All in all, there are now around 45,000 households with no power. There's businesses without power. And on a personal level, this is the biggest problem. 3 hospitals and a couple of care centers are affected too. So hundreds of patients and elderly people had to be relocated.
Okay, Lars, we hope power returns to these German households at the earliest. Thank you very much. Lars Holter reporting from Berlin, DW. You're watching DD India News Now. Time now for some sporting action. England posted 384 in their first innings of the final Ashes test at the Sydney Cricket Ground on Monday. Joe Root's century helped England reach the massive score of 384. Root made 160, well supported by Harry Brooks' 84, before Australia replied strongly. At stumps on day 2, Australia were 166 for 2 with Travis Head unbeaten on 91. The hosts trailed by 218 runs but remained well placed heading into day 3. The series, however, is already decided, with Australia having retained the Ashes after earlier victories in Perth, Brisbane and Adelaide. In football, Chelsea stunned Manchester City with a stoppage time equaliser from Enzo Fernandez to snatch a Premier League point at the Etihad. Interim boss Callum McFarlane, promoted from Chelsea's under-21s after Enzo Maresca's exit, set his side up to frustrate the champions. City struck first through Tiani Randier's fierce finish in the first half. Chelsea grew into the game with Pedro Neto and Liam Delap missing chances, but Fernandez's persistence paid off as he poked home at the third attempt. The draw leaves City 6 points behind leaders Arsenal, while Chelsea celebrated resilience and fight. And some weather update now from India's north. Fresh snowfall in Sonmarg has turned the Kashmir Valley into a winter wonderland. Tourists from across India are arriving to enjoy snow rides and scenic views. Take a look.
A fresh snowfall in Jammu and Kashmir's Sonmarg is now drawing tourists from all over India. Sonmarg's pristine white snowy landscape is being complemented by a variety of rides that are notching up thrills in the chill.
बहुत अच्छा लग रहा है यहाँ पे एंजॉय करने के लिए बहुत कुछ है राइडिंग्स है हॉर्स राइडिंग है स्कूटर बाइक राइडिंग है और यहाँ पे स्नो भी ज़्यादा हो रही है तो जिसको स्नो देखना है स्नोफॉल देखना है वो यहाँ ज़रूर आए.
For Sonmarg residents, the snowfall brings in hopes of more tourist footfall and an increase in businesses.
हम चाहते हैं कि बर्फ अगर ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा गिरे सब लोगों को यहाँ का रोज़गार मिलेगा. टूरिस्ट तो रोज़ ही दिन से दिन बढ़ ही जाते हैं तो उम्मीद है ज़्यादा इससे भी ज़्यादा बढ़ना चाहिए.
Sonmarg is one of Kashmir's key winter destinations where tourism, livelihood and snowfall are linked. The fresh snowfall has made everyone happy.
So that's all for this edition of DD India News Hour. Do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. Connect with us on our different social media handles at DD India Live, and you can also download our DD India mobile app for quick news and updates on the go. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Tanvi Taneja from all of us here in New Delhi. Thank you for watching. Namaskar.